Hi, Future Sai here, relative to the video that's about to play. So I'm recording this the night after the Some Idiot Reads that uploaded on the 21st, which was itself after the Some Idiot Reads that is about to play after this video. It's very convoluted, and honestly, because I just got it in my head that I really wanted to sit and read Last Ride of Pride's Imperial Prince, because it was an impactful thing for Coyote. I wanted to do that, and then he gave permission, and so there it was. What I want to go ahead and toss in here, though, is with this video being uploaded when it is, it's significantly closer to the release time for American Mystic, The Life, Death, and Rebirth of Jimmy Wonderful, which, as of this afternoon, 10/22, 2 days before the actual release date of the book, it is, at least for some period of time, trending as #1 on Amazon in low fantasy. That's fucking awesome. And you should definitely get yourself a copy of it. I'd harp on about the book in and of itself in this idiot rambling section at the start of this video, but I'm talking about it in a way more like it's a comin' future tense, as opposed to it's coming like tomorrow. So, well, tomorrow, depending upon when this gets uploaded. The hell? Is my video? What the crap? I've got to get better equipment. Anyway, there's going to be a link in the description to American Mystic. Go out, buy yourself a copy. The book, well, pre-order it. The book is coming out on the 24th. Check it out. It's freaking amazing, and I think that's going to be enough. So, cheers. Hello. It is 7:36 p.m. on October 16th, 2024. My name is Sai, and this is Some Idiot Reads. At this point, anyone who's actually watching this with any remote regularity, I suspect you already know that, and you probably already know me personally. So, hi, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying hydrated. If you don't want to hear the idiot ramble for a bit, that's fine. Go ahead, scooch forward. There's going to be chapter annotations and all of that. Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks, in all honesty. I've been legitimately, I've been trying to stretch these on out ever so slightly, because I specifically wanted to, well, there will be a separate chapter notation for this one, God, this is the crap about not actually scripting this and just doing it off the cuff. It's just like, oh, hi. I've been tired the last couple of weeks. The weather shift has been just beating the crap out of me. I don't know about you guys, but oh, what the hell? Maybe this will be a minute. I'm a record time on this one. I actually don't think I'm going to sit and ramble too heavily. All right. So, first order of business. Today, for Some Idiot Reads, we are going to continue with the dispatches from Appalachia. Had that brief pivot for Mist last time, which I was personally happy with. I also have a set of Mist videos that are uploading right now. Should be another one tomorrow, so probably... Well, actually, probably this will get posted after that. I'll probably do this on Friday so that it doesn't overlap with Mist upload tomorrow. So the Mist upload will be up the day before this goes up. And then there's still going to be one more. I need to get that recording done. Probably do that one tomorrow night. Anyway. But more importantly... vastly more important than the Mist playthrough and any of that or anything on my channel. Coyote Wallace. Dude, right here. This dude, right here. He is awesome. If you've been listening to any of the dispatches for the other two that we did, and you enjoyed them, I've got a treat for you guys. Because October 24th, 2024. American Mystic, The Life, Death, and Rebirth of Jimmy Wonderful is coming out I was going to say it's coming soon or something. I was going to try and say something. I don't know. I didn't even grab any coffee before I sat down. All right, no, get it together. So, this is coming out here soon. I mean, it's already posted on Amazon. You can go ahead, pre-order it to get it on Kindle. It will be available on the 24th. I am so freaking hyped for this. Let me read what it's got here. American Mystic follows the daring exploits of gonzo journalist James Wazinski, renowned as Jimmy Wonderful, as he embarks on his final assignment, to bear witness to the fate of magic in the world of man. In a reality where magic is tangible and interwoven with everyday life, individuals with the ability to manipulate reality through the word are known as name breakers. Feared and coveted in equal measure, these wielders of the word are viewed as genetic anomalies, regarded by many as a plague to be eradicated. Enter Ray Altenhofen. Altenhofen? I never actually have heard the pronunciation of it. An enigmatic billionaire who's amassed his fortune by peddling the cure for magic. Now, claiming to possess the crucial elements needed to expunge the last vestiges of magic from existence, he convenes Jimmy and a select few at his compound in the desolate salt flats of Utah. Their mission? To make a final plea for the preservation of all that transcends the human realm. American Mystic, narrated through Jimmy's unorthodox prose, delves into the climactic struggle for the very soul of American ethos. As society hurtles towards a future stripped of wonder, where the peculiar is outlawed and the extraordinary hunted to extinction, Jimmy finds himself joined by Tech, a fierce Native American activist determined to thwart Altenhofen's machinations, and Moxley Allerton, a young, defiantly gay name-breaker whose command of the word may surpass all others in history. Their journey, rooted in the gonzo tradition, seamlessly merges with a contemporary fantasy landscape, offering a unique blend of irreverent storytelling and surreal imagination. This is going to be 100% worth it. I was lucky enough, I know I've mentioned this before, and I'm still going to sit and ramble about it because this is my soapbox, and if you don't like it, fuck you. I love you. Please keep watching. I was lucky enough to be able to read the very beginnings of this. God, what was it? A year and a half? 2 years ago? Something like that. With the very, very beginnings of it. And I absolutely adored what I had seen. I think it was for this one. I actually sat down and I'm like, dude, this is solid gold. This is fantastic. This is amazing. I absolutely love it. I'm going to have a link in the description. By all means, get yourselves a copy. The hardcover version, I believe, will also be coming out. I think Coyote said that it was going to be on the 24th. It's obviously it's releasing on the 24th. I think the hardcover version will be available to purchase on the 24th. So... But I've got my copy for Kindle pre-ordered. I'm definitely getting myself a hardcover. I'm going to find my way to get a copy of that book to you, dude, so I can get a signed copy, because, dude, yeah. And I highly encourage any of you that watch this, please buy a copy for yourselves and give it a read. It will be absolutely worth your time. If you have even the slightest iota of awareness of like my creative, what I enjoy creatively and what I find pleasure in and what I find is a gripping read, this is in it. This is awesome. Get a copy for yourselves. Give it a read. If you like it, spread the word on it. I want to see this thing blow up, if at all possible. And if you're sitting on the fence about it, that's understandable. You know, like, okay, maybe you don't want to spend a couple of bucks, even though it's only like $3. Come on. No, we're living in a post-capitalist. We're living in a hellscape. And so, maybe you just don't have the $3, or you're like, I'm on the fence about it. That's cool. That's understandable. I have at least one more bag one more bag of tricks, one more item in my bag of tricks to convince you to get this book. And that is, after it is released, so probably actually will be the next Some Idiot Reads that I do, I am going to sit and do a read of the very beginning. I'm not going to do like an entire read through, but I will do the very beginning of this book. I've gotten the necessary permission for it and the blessing of the author, so I want to make sure that's all clear, that's all good and copacetic. I made sure to check with him first, like, hey, is that cool? Because honestly, like, I want to sit and do that. I want to read it. I want to, like, give as much as I can to encourage everyone to buy a copy of this. This is amazing. So, that will be the next Some Idiot Reads, which will likely be, given that it's coming out on the 24th, yeah, it'll probably be after the start of November, when I get that one going. I give it about, well, actually, no. Maybe I'll even do it on the 24th. I don't know. Anyway, that will be the next Some Idiot Reads, is doing a bit from this. But get yourself a copy. If you're on the fence, check out the Some Idiot Reads. If you enjoy what you wind up seeing, then awesome. Then go ahead and get another copy. And if you're like, it's still not my cup of tea, that's totally fine. Actually, there's no way in hell it would be your cup of tea. This would be your shot of, like, mescaline and bottom shelf bourbon, I think is probably the better descriptor for this. With a chaser of several different narcotics. I think that's pretty accurate. And that's fine. If it's not your style, that's cool. If you know someone that would like it, though. Honestly, short form version, if you enjoyed Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, if you enjoyed the graphic novel series Transmetropolitan, if either of those are things that you have perused yourself and you enjoyed, you will absolutely fucking love this. I would be willing to go so far as to say I guarantee it. So, that is enough for me harping right this moment about American Mystic. Definitely want that to get going. I'm just going to keep saying the same shit over and over again. I know. I'm going to be like a broken fucking record. And that's fine. That is not what I'm here to read today, though. What I'm here to read is the stuff of Coyote Wallace. Now, it does appear that he's gotten 3 more out since the last one I read, which, hot damn. And I think he's got another one that he was, I don't know if he was saying, he made a post about, he had one more that was coming. I know he posted about one that was going to be coming here soon. I don't know if it's that top one or if there's another one coming soon. I'm not sure. I'll keep an eye on it. But if you do enjoy the dispatches, by all means, please give a follow to his Medium page, which I just realized I never did. What the hell? Oh my God. I am a criminal, my dude. I am so sorry. I don't know. I thought I had already done that. That is... You have my full permission to write whatever disparaging commentary about me, true or not. If I can get a signed copy of American Mystic and any future works, you can lambaste me. You can commit whatever libel that you wish. I have wronged you there, and I am sorry. Please, if you're watching this video or listening in the background, more likely, as soon as you can, please go and give a follow on the Coyote Wallace Medium page, and shame me by doing so immediately. That works somehow. Okay. So what we have got here, I have another 3 that I am going to read. And, oh wow, that is an image. Wow, that doesn't feel like Appalachia. that feels like where I grew up. Not even gonna lie. But I've got 3 of these. Hopefully that will stretch out for the hour and a half that I usually try and go for. And if not, whatever. Oh, see, now we're at like 13 minutes of recording before I actually get to the reading. That feels more accurate. All right, so let's get going before my dinner gets any colder. Actually, yeah, real quick. Just look at that, look at that, look at that. I know that doesn't look like much. That is it's chili. And it's got a multi-grain bagel with a garlic butter broken up into it. But you might be like, why would you break up a bagel into a chili? You should be using like a biscuit. And it's like, yes, I should be using a biscuit. We ate the biscuits already. So this is leftover chili. Anyway, all right. Let's dive in. First one that we have. Surf, Sand, and Coyotes. The Adventures of an Appalachian Degenerate. Part 1. I think I might know which story this one is. Okay. It was June. Well, sorry. First, there's a picture of... What the hell is that? I do not know what that is. I'm guessing it's a whiskey. It's a whiskey or a bourbon. It's Tennessee something. Anyway. It was June 23rd, 2009, and the heat in even the low, shadow-heavy valleys of eastern Appalachia. And the heat in even the low, shadow-heavy valleys of eastern Appalachia had steadily risen to the mid-90s. Even the shade seemed to boil that day, and the only thing more oppressive than the molten sun above was the monotony of small-town life. I was 24 and on the outs of a soulless career in the human resources department of a fundraising company, read as Professional Thieves, and had decided to spend the last of my paychecks, severance, for swallowing down the sort of fuckery, which had included a near fistfight with at least one Nazi person of exceptionally stature, on drinking myself stupid with cold, cheap beer. I didn't mind the loss of the job. I'd all but quit long ago, and I had only felt a mild sense of surprise that it had taken them that long to actually pull my number. If I suffered from anything at all, aside from the murderous heat, it was the tedium of life in the hills. There's a peace and tranquility to the mountains, but the appreciation of it is only attained through the steady advancement of years. When you're young, a small town feels entirely too much like a prison. There's only so many parties you can go to on the top of abandoned strip mines, only so many trails to follow, and only so many deep dives into chemically induced oblivion before the whole thing begins to lose its taste like old gum. Honestly, quick sidebar on that. While I've commented before, like I definitely really feel this, while not from Appalachia, from the Gulf Coast. Definitely. I cannot say I feel it on the note of strip mines, but regarding trails to follow, bonfires out in the middle of nowhere, outside the edge of town, where like light pollution is a distant memory, or the occasional going to the tenements on the outskirts of town, which I think have been bulldozed now. Going to the tenements on the outskirts of town where there was, I shit you not, like this one purveyor of fine herbal supplements, let's call him, often through some heavy parties. I only ever went to one, and that was because one friend of mine was going to, they had their reasons. And I met some dude there named Weed Hopper. Like, literally, that's all people knew him as, because he had a Waffle House hat, and it was WH, and I know one time he was extremely high, and he's like, it stands for Weed Hopper. And I listened to a really great jam session. I was going somewhere with that one. Oh, I didn't really do that many of that sort of thing. I was very sheltered as a kid. Not by choice and not happily. But I feel that had I not been so egregiously cooped the fuck up, I would have been able to at least, not cooped up and not so much of a weird kid. I might have been able to actually experience more of that. As it was, I don't know. even if I didn't wind up experiencing a lot of that directly, especially the chemically induced oblivion, that didn't happen for a couple of years until after I left the small town. I feel the vibe of it. Like, there's a certain feel to small towns specifically where that's a thing. And no, you really do want to just get the hell out of there. There's nothing there. You've seen every corner of the place. There's got to be more to the world, especially with the advent of the internet. Anyway, continuing. That day, I had no plan in particular. Indeed, I'm fairly certain that by noon I'd consumed enough alcohol that even the damn heat was only a minor inconvenience. What I did need, though, or at least what I had been craving, was a joint. Something to mellow the time between the high point of the baleful sun and the mercy that would be setting behind its hill, or that would be its setting behind the hills. This had necessitated the calling upon of an old acquaintance, one Tommy Dauberts, who distinguished himself from his competition by being the sort of young go-getter that delivered illicit substances to strange men willing to pay top dollar. I was neither strange nor willing to pay top dollar, but he'd once nearly driven me mad with an accidental overdose of Salvia divinorum, so I had a working discount, and Tommy promised to be right over. Which looks like that links to a different one of the articles. I may have to read that one later. True to his word, Tommy and his friend Big John arrived some 45 minutes later with the goods, and as was customary, I smoked the first spliff with him before going to the trouble of actually hauling it over. As we sat around my tiny 3-room shack of a home, where beer bottles stood like sentinels upon the coffee table and entertainment center, our conversation drifted to our mutual plight. You know, we should get out of here, man. This town fucking sucks. Law's always up our asses and nothing to do. Tommy wasn't exactly a poet, but he summed up my feelings on the matter well enough. Tell me about it, but what are you going to do? I said as I took a puff from the spliff and blew the smoke in the air overhead. I was pleasantly buzzed, and the grousing about the lack of prospects was the closest thing we had to meaningful entertainment. Could always just leave, go rent a room at the beach, stay for a few days, and go to the clubs, Big John rumbled as I passed him the joint. Big John was Tommy's right-hand man, and where Tommy went, Big John was always sure to follow. He'd been one of 3 African-American students that attended our high school, had played center on the football team, and tipped the scales at nearly 350 pounds. Despite his size, Big John was one of the most caring and gentle souls that I've ever known, and I suspect that Tommy kept him around partly because his presence dissuaded even the most unhinged, drug-fueled miscreant from trying to separate Tommy from his illicitly gained profits, but mostly because he was little more than a giant teddy bear. Tommy had all the fighting prowess of a wet pillow, but when you had a bulldozer that thought it was a man watching your back, you didn't really need fighting prowess. The idea was so simple, so beautiful, so utterly mad, that for a moment the 3 of us just sat there with the smoke curling overhead and the realization that there was nothing, absolutely nothing that summer at least, to tie us to our ancestral home. We were closing in on the midway point of our 20s, and the opportunities for wild adventure were gradually slipping away through our fingers. Too old to pretend we couldn't see the end coming, and too young to do anything about it, about the end, but spit in its eye. I want to comment on that. That reminds me of just going to Paris. We had a lot, like, that's an entire tale in its own right, but suffice to say, if I were to summarize it, myself and a few other friends were really inspired by Moulin Rouge early in our 20s, full of spit and fire, and we decided, screw it, let's go to Paris and be homeless. And, you know, really capture the bohemian mentality. That was a very interesting couple of weeks. Including what I still to this day think that was, I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement, dude. I think that was an arms deal that we bugged out of on Pongrenai. I swear that was like an armed. There was some kind of criminal activity happening under the Statue of Liberty. Anyway, so yeah, like talking about that in the midpoint of the 20s. No, I feel it. Mine was, I think it was 19, maybe 20. By my mid 20s, I think I'd already settled like in place. I got most of my like adventuring done in my early 20s. I mean, sure, if I had the money. My ass has to worry about finding a real job now, I said as I surveyed the graveyard of empties and the hollowed-out pizza boxes. My mind was trying to run through my funding, muddled by booze and the heat. How long did I have before I hit rock bottom and was forced by necessity to get on with it? A week and a half? Probably less if I kept going the way I was. Perhaps I could have afforded the trip, but that would have hurried my need to get back on my feet, and I was having none of that. Giving up in a small town is like fighting the urge to go back to sleep when you've been awoken several hours too soon. There's a warm pull to not giving a fuck and being lost in the invisible masses of East Appalachia. From nothing we come and nothing we return. Our legacy's unfit for the mass consumption of the general public. Fuck it, I'll pay for the rooms. Just scrape together enough for food and stuff. Tommy leaned forward and said with a sort of devil-may-care grin that only those with more money than sense can ever properly reproduce. The air had filled with an invisible charge when Tommy had said, "Fuck it." The possibility of escape, even for a little while, was as contagious as it was tantalizing. Draped in the muggy heat, and with no relief in sight, I felt my misgivings begin to crumble. Supposed I could escape for a while, head down to Virginia Beach and spend a day or two. Being a degenerate lush in a new location might be just what I needed. I guess we could get a cabin at Virginia Beach, live it up a little. I was just stoned and drunk enough to acquiesce this tiny bit. Goddamn me. Virginia Beach? Nah, fuck Virginia Beach. Virginia cops are the worst, Big John countered. They are, man. Fucking pigs almost got me and Coyote once, didn't they? Tommy added, and put the nail in the coffin for Virginia Beach. They had a point. I'd been with Tommy once when he'd been taking the bumper off a car outside of a nightclub called the Borderline. He'd had nearly a half-pound of marijuana crammed into the space where the passenger airbag should have been in his truck, and though the police had certainly sensed what he was, they had been unable to find the goods. This hadn't stopped them from grilling him for more than an hour, and only the fact the car's owner had been so high on cocaine that he had fled the scene on foot saved us. We were warned by the police never to be caught across the state line again, and in Tommy's world, such threats, while not always heeded, were given a healthy amount of credence. Boys, if you think I'm spending 14 hours in that car to get to Florida just so we can be hot and miserable with a bunch of kids around, I began, ready to discard my earlier optimism. Florida? Oh, shit, Coyote. I ain't going to Florida unless I got a coke hookup. No, man. Let's go to Myrtle Beach. Tommy floated the idea as a sort of compromise, with all the optimism of a man who's sure he's going to be the one that swindles the car salesman. This was a bad idea. Not the worst idea. Definitely a bad one, though. And damn me if there wasn't, and still is, a part of me that had never seen a bad idea. Damn me if there wasn't. Still is a part of me that never seen a bad idea that he didn't like. The word choice there kind of tripped me up for so slightly. I had nothing going for me, no prospects, and any attempt at escape would be temporary at best. I could have stayed, turned them down flat, and I thought of doing just that. A trip to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, is a bit like a trip to one of the lesser rings of hell. The place where they punish people who get too heavily into NASCAR or buy collectible Donald Trump dinner plates because they think it'll pay for their kids' college tuition. Nothing good has ever come from a trip to Myrtle Beach, unless you're in the unplanned pregnancy or herpes treatment business. God damn it. Fuck me sideways. I'm in. We were off to the races. And there is a picture, I'm guessing that is at the outskirts. Myrtle Beach welcomes you. Loaded for bear. The actual logistics and planning of the trip were not as simple as all that. In the coming hours, while I was scraping up money and doing my best to gather a handful of assorted clothing and disposable garbage bags, I didn't have a suitcase. Tommy and Big John handled the rest. Tommy's job was to handle the booking of the hotel and supplies, while Big John's job was to chart the course and, if possible, come up with some extra money for the trip. Little did I realize I had entrusted my fate to madmen. Both of them were successful in their quest, at least superficially, but the devil was always going to be lurking in the details. Tommy booked us a room at a place called the Blue Quail, and saw fit to acquire for us 2/5 of Hennessy, 3 cases of Heineken, 2/5 of Grey Goose, 1/5 of Jack Daniel's Black Label whiskey, 1/5 of Captain Morgan's spiced rum, 1/4 pound of pot, and a sandwich baggie, ostensibly for Tommy's private use, filled with an assortment of Valium, Xanax, and God only knew what else. If any of this seemed excessive, then it was only because we had no interest in the world of putt-putt golf, pierside photography, or the tourist traps. In every city, there exists a beating pulse of underground life, an energy that thumbs its nose at the proper and polite channels of conduct, in favor of revelrous debauchery, often shot through with just enough terror to keep things interesting. The pursuit of these good times was sometimes a tricky affair, and it was always better to be overly prepared than to come up lacking. If one's going to fall to pieces in a strange land, then they should always do so with an overabundance of spirits and narcotics to lubricate the transition from upstanding citizen to drooling fiend in search of pleasurable experiences. Big John had come up with the extra money by finding another poor soul to recruit into the journey. Braden Cornett, or, to those of us who knew him, simply Tarantino. I didn't know him all that well. He worked at the same company I'd just been let go from, though, and we were at least familiar with one another. The nickname had been given to him due to the fact that he bore more than a passing resemblance to the famed director, even down to a receding hairline in his mid-20s. As for the plotting of the route, well, these were the days before GPS had grown in popularity. In the end, we got where we were going, and that was perhaps all that mattered. The journey would be just over 8 hours long, with some 450 miles of back roads, highways, and questionable gas station food designed to tear one's soul out via their own fluttering anus. I had $300 to my name, and that was all I brought with me, aside from my garbage bag full of wrinkled clothing. I was the poorest person on the trip, and had half expected the whole thing to fall apart before we even got on the road. Had I been sober, my lack of worldly possessions suited for anything that resembled a vacation may have been a source of shame or anxiety. But I was too far around the bend for that now. Our horizons were wide open, and I would have my taste of freedom, temporary or not, come hell or high water. Our motley band left out late that night, driving into the darkness as we headed south into the unknown. We'd all been before, mostly when we were younger, and accompanied by our families. But now, unrestrained and unfettered by the burdens of having anyone we knew with us, and with years rapidly mounting up onto our 20s like a heavy snow that's intent on bringing down a rooftop, the unknown was almost welcoming. We had no fear as we crossed multiple state lines, with enough booze and illicit substances to make us the centerpiece of a My Cousin Vinny sequel. We didn't mind that the 4 of us were crammed together like sardines in the cab of the truck, or that not a single one of us had the same taste in music, and thus the radio was perpetually in a state of flux, bouncing between Tommy's Bob Marley, Big John's love of Hank Williams, Tarantino's obscure metal bands, and my own punk rock leanings, which made for what might have been hell's own playlist. The closer we got to the state line, the more energy that shielded us from the fear of our discomfort, the more the energy that shielded us from the fear or discomfort grew in its intensity. The further into the dark we went, the more we could taste the freedom that hides in the pavement of America's highways. The promise of our American birthright says, when one finds their situation, or their heart too heavy, the road will always take them in. We are, after all, a nation of ramblers. All right, I want to make a quick comment on that. I need water. That line right there, that one hits. I wandered around a significant amount in my early 20s, and there's many a nighttime drive or ride, depending on how the circumstances were, where I felt that. When you're in the dark in between cities, when it is just pitch black, 3, 4 in the morning, and you know there's not a soul on the road in either direction for 50, 100 miles. There's a sense of isolation, yes, but it's a sense of freedom, of liberation, of every burden in life just dissipating like gossamer. That sentence captured that. I remember little of the trip, other than the lot of us making a somewhat half-assed vow to not dig into the booze until we reached our destination. This just left the pot and the pills for the ride, and we indulged with all the wanton abandon owed to the night and the roads that threaded through it. Our conversations ranged from our wildest romantic conquest, which were almost always bullshit anyway, to what we would do with millions of dollars, the presidency, or our own music labels. We made one stop for gas and to stagger into a truck stop bathroom whose walls were covered with the folksy wisdom of countless open-road wordsmiths. Over one of the urinals, someone had drawn a cartoonish, sad, drooping penis with a syringe poking out of one of its little stick arms. We were on the right track. Quick aside, one of the best bits of urinal graffiti I've ever seen. It was actually while I was at work. I was installing some phones. And I had to go stop into, public bathroom, stand there, start doing my business. I glance down, and I see scrawled on the wall next to the piping for the urinal, "You hold the future in your hands." And I laughed so hard I almost lost control and pissed myself at work. I don't feel any shame admitting that. It got me. Our journey had finally taken us somewhere outside of Asheboro, and I dared close my eyes for a moment. Tommy was driving, and Bob Marley and the Wailers were reminding us all to get up, stand up for our rights, when I made the mistake of blinking. The conversations in the truck melted away beneath the music, and there was only the steady vibrations of the road beneath our tires. Drugs, booze, and exhaustion had been waiting behind my eyelids, and they set upon me like some eldritch beast from the ocean's depths, entwining me in its grasp and hauling me down to the swirling darkness. Sleep had me at last. Surf, sun, and lunacy. "Wake up and hit this. We're here, Coyote man," a voice called to me from across the black void of sleep. It was Big John. Fuck, we better not be dead or you're just fucking with me. I groaned and opened my eyes to find the passenger door of the truck being held open by Big John as Tarantino worked to unload our belongings. Tommy was nowhere in sight, but I didn't have the gumption to look for him either. My head hurt, and my mouth felt like it had been crammed full of old cat litter. I never had a problem getting wrecked on high-tension booze, cheap beer, or even really good wine. My problem was always the morning after, when your mind had cleared and your body, quite understandably upset about your attempt to poison it, decides to voice its displeasure. My head pounded, and my stomach was a greasy bag of week-old calamari. Am I eating ice cream out of Mariah Carey's ass? Mariah Carey? Is that? Jesus Christ. Am I eating ice cream out of Mariah Carey's ass? No, I'm not. So we ain't dead, motherfucker. Now get your dead ass up. That was a sidebar. That was a point of wisdom there. I don't think I've ever heard. I question if that sentence has ever been uttered before that moment in the history of man. Big John is a poet. That was my ad. Big John chided me, but it was all in good fun. I crawled out of the truck like a man who had been living hunched over in a cave. My eyes were bleary and bloodshot, my face a dirty sprawl from a few days away from the razor, and my skin already pale from a genetic predisposition towards shunning the sun. I had 2 colors, white as death and lobster red, but that day I was certainly experimenting with puke in the parking lot of the hotel you just arrived at green. Despite my youth, I got a quick taste of what it would be like to chase 40 when my body, which had been crammed between Big John and Tarantino for the majority of the ride, was suddenly free to stretch my legs. I goddamn nearly collapsed then and there on the pavement. My limbs were no happier with me over the ride than my guts were with me over the booze. I turned, intending to help Tarantino with the luggage, but then I caught sight of the sea. Our hotel was oceanfront, and though I was not what anyone might have called a social butterfly, I still had some lingering misgivings about the whole trip. The water made it all worth it. I've seen the sea a handful of times when I was a child, and the memory of the warm sand underfoot, the salt in the air, and the steady, low murmur of the tide had lingered with me. But it was only then that I was confronted with it again, fresh and new, that I felt the capacity to genuinely appreciate it. Hungover, still tired, and my body aching, I was nevertheless restored. Whether we got arrested, robbed, or riddled with food poisoning that forced us all to shit our souls out of our bodies, we had made it. We had reached our destination. For those wondering at the strange appeal of the place, allow me to take a moment and try to throw the whole thing into focus. Myrtle Beach is to Appalachians what mountain streams are to salmon. The city itself is built around the tourism industry, with a year-round population of just north of 35,000 people. The location places it smack dab in the middle of a 60-mile stretch of continuous beach, known formally as the Grand Strand, with an overabundance of leisurely ways to part those tourists from their hard-earned dollars. There are 87 different golf courses, 1,800 different places to grab a bite to eat, and absolutely zero regard for anything that could be mistaken for good taste. The city's tourism commission had long ago realized that there was no competing with the big mouse down in Florida, and had thus turned their efforts to catering to those who would either be asked to leave a magic kingdom, or those who clearly turned to highway banditry if they tried to make a road trip that far down into Gator country. Myrtle Beach might not put it on the sign, but everyone who's been there with any regularity can feel it. It's Disney World for people who will never get the chance, by way of money, birth, or other circumstances, to actually go. Hey, Coyote, you want to go to Myrtle Beach sometime? Maybe it's a celebration for your publishing? Let me know. If you make it this far into the whole video, let me know. I've never actually been, but that just spoke to me. The sort of town where you can get obliterated on fruity drinks, have regrettable sex in the sand, and spend a small fortune on food that would have been rendered cheap by poor reviews anywhere else. As if the whole place embodied the sentiment, I'm here for a good time, not a long time, and was proud of it. I got the keys, Tommy bellowed as he came out of the little side lobby built adjacent to the 2 stories worth of neat doors that was our hotel. The blue quail was, well, for lack of a better description, blue. Someone at some indiscernible point in its origin had decided to paint the whole damned exterior, a shade that can only be properly described as lonely smurf scrotum blue. I can visualize that. And the whole place had a cheap, tacky, and somewhat seedy vibe. It wasn't the sort of hotel you took your family to. Hell, it wasn't even the sort of hotel you took a cheap hooker with a lazy eye back to. Unless she had shorted you in the change department, or you had a silverfish fetish. We finished gathering our luggage, which, of course, contained our stash, and made for the room. Everyone else out ahead with their suitcases in hand, while I dragged behind my black garbage bag of belongings slung over my shoulder, like a skinny Santa Claus come to bring the joys of poverty to all the boys and girls of South Carolina. We only had enough money to book 1 room between the 4 of us, but that didn't seem to be much of a problem at the time. None of us had any intention of sleeping. You don't need beds if you don't plan on sleeping. Our room turned out to be all right enough. It was small and lacked most of the basic amenities, but it had 2 beds. There's no air conditioning, no minibar. The television was just getting old enough to vote, and one look at the green waters of the pool outside and you became much more thankful for those 2 measly beds. Our conversations were sparse and flitted between debates on how we would spend that first night and lesser congratulatory statements on our successful arrival. I can't believe we made it. I thought for sure we were going to get pulled over, Tarantino said, as he began to neatly unpack his clothing into the hotel-provided dresser on which our room's television sat. The fuck's wrong with you? You mad? You're gonna fucking jinx us talking like that. Jesus Christ, do you want to go ahead and break the mirrors while you're at it? I groused, while slinging my bag of wrinkled clothing into a corner. I'm just saying, that was a lot of shit to carry across state lines, Tarantino once more pointed out with the sort of awe that those for whom the law is still some mystical entity, infallible and unbeatable, are the only proper possessors. I guess there's only one thing to do then, isn't there? Tommy threw the rhetorical question out there with a Cheshire cat grin as he began to rummage through his own belongings. Tommy drew back up from his suitcase with a positively massive quantity of marijuana in a vacuum-sealed bag. He held it in his hand like a fisherman who had just managed to haul in a giant bass and was proudly showing it off to his fellow anglers. "We get rid of the evidence," Tommy said with mock solemnity as his eyes flitted from Big John to myself. "We get rid of that motherfucking evidence," Big John seconded. I had been awake for less than an hour, had no food, was suffering from alcohol-induced dehydration, and had spent at least 8 hours crammed into a goddamn pickup truck so tightly that I could tell you the change in Tarantino's pocket. I needed sleep, a shower, a shave, maybe even a goddamn bagel. Now was the time to be the voice of reason, to speak of moderation and restraint, to play the role of adult for my wayward and often rowdy friends. Fuck it, make it a fat one. And there's a picture of what I'm guessing is Myrtle Beach, and dear God, okay, I'm questioning going to Myrtle Beach now. Is that a Valtrex commercial, or is it a Bud Light commercial? You decide. That's a caption. Plastic smiles and nameless streets. The matter of what we were to do with our first of 4 days was hotly contested, and even after we'd smoked enough cannabis to make us all seem like rejects from a Fish concert, we were no closer to an answer. Big John wanted to immediately go to any number of dance clubs that were peppered about the main strip. He needed, at the very least, 2 hours of prep time before he'd be willing to actually go, and wanted us all to commit to the plan so that he wouldn't have to rush. Tommy just wanted to sit around the hotel, smoke pot, and try and suss out any of their heads that might have been masquerading as fellow guests. Tarantino just wanted to sleep. And I was rapidly realizing why I usually limited myself to small doses of human contact. I liked them well enough, but I really needed to get out of the room and just feel the sidewalk beneath me. Ultimately, we all opted to go our own ways, at least initially, and then we would reconvene towards the end of the evening to give John's plan a little more consideration. I can't say as to whether any of them actually carried through with their plans beyond Tommy, because I left our smoky room after we were all nearly cross-eyed with inebriation. My entire life has been spent within the confines of rural living, so one of the first things I like to do in a new place, especially one that's even moderately urban, is simply walk the streets. There's great truths hidden in sidewalks, graffiti-covered alleyways, and lesser-known paths. I've always been able to get a feel for a place by losing myself within it. Every city has a different personality, a different vibrational frequency that attunes it to a certain majority of its populace, be they short-termers or lifers. The whole place was a tourist trap, as genuine as a banker's smile, and geared towards the subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, art of getting tourists to spend their money. I found myself in a hotel bar, not our own, nibbling disinterestedly at an overpriced BLT, and trying to convince my grieved stomach that the orange juice in a vodka screwdriver counted as actual sustenance. I'd posted myself up by a window and watched as tired parents chased after exuberant children and surly teenagers prowled the length of the beaches. The daytime in Myrtle Beach belongs to the families, to some slightly trashy but nevertheless endearing American sentiment about beach holidays and hot dogs eaten while picking up a terrible sunburn. After what passed as lunch, I found myself once more wandering. Most of the small shops were pockets of weirdness, and their window displays were designed to be garish and draw the eye. In one, there was a ghoulish mannequin of a deceased NASCAR driver, Dale Earnhardt, in mid-strangle of his rival, Jeff Gordon. In another, there was a giant painting, easily the size of a grown man, and Bob Marley composed entirely of the stained butts, or roaches, of joints. There was a delightful, almost cavalier embrace of this trashy strangeness, the sort of goods you might one day pull out of a box in your attic and shake your head. In the days before the rise of MAGA, these small shops were islands of kookiness, churches of the sly wink, and bastions of good old American garbage culture. What they had become, depositories for Trump merchandise, is a tragedy. By the time I dragged myself back to the room, the sun had begun to set, and the ocean was ablaze with the sort of colors one can only find when they reach a point where the land gives itself up to the sea. Tommy was on the phone with his girlfriend, assuring her he was having a perfectly fine and monogamous trip, and Big John was having a laugh at Tarantino as he introduced him to the wonders of drinking straight Hennessy from red plastic cups. "No, baby, we're just going to stay around the hotel tonight, maybe do some golfing tomorrow," Tommy cooed into the phone. "My God, how did you fit this many hookers into one room? Look at that one with the dwarf. That's inhumane. How's he supposed to breathe?" I shouted from the doorway as I motioned for Big John to pass me a cup of my own. Tommy shot me a look that suggested I should go out to the sea and offer myself to dread Cthulhu. Tommy couldn't muster enough menace to drive back a skittish jackrabbit, though. John and Tarantino were already starting to crack up. Tommy's girlfriend, Amber, was forever trying to keep Tommy on the straight and narrow. She had visions of high society and wealth, and sometimes Tommy would play along. He spent as much time hiding the activities from her as he did from the cops. Busting his balls about that fact was almost a civic duty. "That's nothing, baby. That's just Coyote, and you know how he is. He's crazy. Too much acid when he was a teenager," Tommy said with the solemn urgency of a man whose balls dangled over a bear trap. He wasn't entirely wrong. I snickered and took my cup. Memories become a bit sketchy here, filled with laughter and smoke and drink. We japed and we cut up and had great fun at each other's expense, the contents of which are either unfit for public consumption or, more likely it would seem, simply lost beneath the blur of time and revelry that has transpired since. Eventually, John's plan of going out and hitting clubs came to fruition, in a manner of speaking. And while the others spent their time getting gussied up in hopes of attracting a mate, or at least a dose of HPV, I dragged one of the heavy room chairs to the door and posted up there with my drink. The wind coming off the ocean was cool, and the sounds of the streets going through their changing of the tide. The drawing back of the families and the youngsters to their rooms for the night left only those of us better suited to a deeper and darker water behind. The high squealing laughter of children had been replaced by the occasional heavy bass-laden thump of cars on the main strip that ran through town, and the excited shouts of women and men beginning to creep from hotel rooms where they had waited out the day. Dude, the visuals for the writing in this are remarkably on point. Like, I am picturing this. I am practically tasting the salt air. Granted, part of that may be from having grown up on the Gulf Coast, but like, I can see this so clearly. I'm absolutely loving this one. Madness was stirring. That charge of absolutely unfettered, give no fucks that was so lacking in the monotony of day-to-day life in a small Appalachian town was building. No one knew us. Not here. We were as anonymous as the people on those streets. This town had no lasting memory. Every time was your first time. And if you made a fool of yourself, that was all right, because by the time you came back, no one knew you. The novelty of this cannot be overstated to those who have lived their whole lives either in the suburbs or the cities. In a small town, you're never really a stranger, and everyone you meet is tied back to someone else that you know. Here, we were all strangers, and it was glorious. Trashy or not, it was glorious. I began to nod off. "You ready?" Big John asked from behind. I snapped back to the waking world and looked down at my mostly empty cup. Supposed I was ready. John and Tommy had gone all out in their preparations. Big John reminded me of some particularly large and colorful breed of turkey, with his poofy FUBU jacket and bright red and white Cardinals jersey beneath it. Tommy stood a little bit behind him in a pair of fine jeans and a breezy white button-up shirt, while Tarantino sat on the bed in the same attire he'd before. Like me, he put no stock in the whole club scene. "I'm ready, but your big ass is going to roast in that," I tried to caution John as I peeled myself out of the chair. "I said the exact same thing," The exact same thing, Tommy said, through barely restrained laughter. Man, fuck you both. This looks good. You gotta work for it. I'm fine as fuck. You don't know shit. John dismissed us and made a show of popping the jacket's collar. I shot a glance at the mirror behind the television, and the skinny punk with the short curly hair and the dark-ringed green eyes staring back at me might well have passed for a slightly less than fresh corpse, but I doubted I'd be dead of heat exhaustion by morning. I had that going for me. Sometimes just not being the biggest fool in the bunch is enough. Not always. Just sometimes. If you say so, big man. If you say so, I said while making no attempts to hide my grin. None of us were in anything that resembled a condition to drive. We were barely in condition to behave like human beings and not some sort of deranged primates escaped from a government experiment involving stimulants and heavy doses of LSD. Though there were plenty of bars and clubs on the main strip, Big John was loath to walk anywhere, even under the best of conditions. The near-tropical heat and his choice of attire made this the absolute goddamn worst of conditions. He insisted on a cab, and after some fumbling with the phone, Tommy was able to reach a cab company that promised to send someone out. The four of us descended from our room and into the bustling madness below to await our ride. The sun was gone now, and the discord of the street warred with the lapping of the sea against the shore for dominance of the year. Everywhere was color and light. Neon signs and bright pastel colors that promised live music, cheap drinks, hot DJs, and everything in between. All chopped up by surf shops, all-night pizza slingers, and hermit crab hawking corner stores as far as the eye could see. The street was packed with cars, all those wonderful souls who came from their various corners to this little tourist town and had chosen to blast their stereos while slowly crawling down the street in tuned-up muscle cars brimming with power and too many speakers. A strange auditory form of peacocking that must have came on the same brainwave to a massive slice of the populace all at once. We're going to be waiting on this guy forever. Jesus, look at this shit, I muttered, marveling at either the stupidity or the glorious madness of it all. Half and half, really. We could walk, Tommy offered up. Big John shook his head. Nah, man, fuck that. Man'll be here, just give it time. John settled the matter. He didn't get in a hurry, and he was not easily convinced once his mind was set to something. All right, well, I'm out. You guys can go ahead without me. I've changed my mind. I think I'll just find some snacks and maybe sleep, Tarantino said from behind us, and the three of us turned to look at him all at once. You fuck? What the hell? Sleep? You're killing me here, I chided, not really minding Tarantino backing out, but it wouldn't do to have not given him some grief about it. Come on, man, don't be like that. I'll pay for everything, Tommy offered. Tarantino just shook his head and pushed his glasses up on his nose. Hey, fuck you guys. I'm tired. I don't know how you three aren't already heading over, Tarantino pointed out. And to be fair, his observation had more than a little merit. I'd have dearly loved a nap. Sleep? Never touch the stuff. Messes with your mind, I shot back. All those years of insomnia and hell-raising had made downplaying the lack of rest second nature. That explains so much, Tarantino said with a wry smile before flipping us all the bird. As Tarantino walked back to the room, it was Tommy that floated the idea of a quick improvisation to John's original plan. Boys, why don't we just go to a strip club? We can always go to the regular ones tomorrow. Tommy looked from myself to John as he posed the question. John looked at me. I looked at John. We both looked back at Tommy. Neither of us needed telepathy to know what the other was thinking at that moment. We were in our early 20s, full of the vim and vigor of youth, and there was no bad decision that young men like us couldn't fall in love with immediately. Damn Skippy, I answered. I'd always been partial to seediness. It was in my blood. That's my boy, right there. That's my fucking boy, John all but cried in joy, and pulled Tommy in for a rough hug that lifted Tommy's feet off the ground. I was so busy laughing at them cutting up, I'd completely forgotten about the cab. You boys call for a ride? Croaked a 3-pack-a-day voice that was heavy with South Carolina drawl. The night was about to get interesting. Fuck me, I may only actually get through the one dispatch. I didn't realize this was this long. Whew. Bad decisions, brick buildings, and a man named Oscar. I'm Oscar T. Williams, and there ain't nobody in this whole place tell you better than me where to and what to do. So what you boys looking to get into tonight? Our cab driver, the aforementioned Oscar T. Williams, said while flashing a nicotine-stained smile. Oscar was somewhere in his early to mid-50s, African-American, the hair having fled from the top of his head, now forming a loose horseshoe around the base of his skull. He couldn't have been more than 5'5", and the ashtray at the front of the dark blue Coyote turned taxi was overflowing with Ridgeway cigarette butts. He reminded me of the old blues musician on whose backs rock and roll had been built. A uniquely American mix between gritty and capriciously charming. When Oscar T. Williams told you that nobody knew a place better than him, you instantly believed it. Yeah, man. Say, you know a good strip club? Tommy blurted out from the back seat where he'd crammed himself between John and myself. Oscar scratched the scruff of his chin and leaned forward on the driver's wheel. We piled into the cab, but that hadn't remedied the slow pace of traffic. Oscar had plenty of time to compile a mental list of seedy establishments in his head, if he didn't already have a list memorized for just such an occasion. Well, let's see. There's the Platinum Club. You boys got a lot of money to spend. Everyone likes to see that one when they come to town. There's the Double Diamonds. That's awfully popular with the college crowd, frat boys and such. Either of those strike your fancy? Oscar asked while watching us through the rear view with the eyes of an old sea captain that had seen everything at least once. Also, a quick aside, I would do a South Carolinian drawl, but in all honesty, I don't know what it sounds like. So, forgive me on that. Nah, man, we want someplace real, you feel me? The sort of place you'd go if you wanted to have some fun, Big John rumbled off to my left in response. Yeah, dude, someplace the locals go to, Tommy chimed in. I think the word they're looking for is authentic, I added. Oscar threw his head back and spat out a harsh but genuine laugh, as if he'd just been told an exceptionally off-color joke that could not be repeated in good company. His smile broadened, and I could once more see the yellowish white of his teeth in the rear view. Oh, I think I know just the place. You boys are in for a treat, Oscar remarked as he began to more steadily weave through traffic now that he had a destination in mind. I have made many storied bad decisions within my lifetime and learned many hard lessons. I had Jonathan Davis dreadlocks. Okay, wait, I can't picture that. Coyote, if you have a picture of that, I understand if you don't want to share that, but I cannot visualize that, and I am deeply curious. Okay, I had Jonathan Davis dreadlocks. I wore Jinko jeans. I dared an angry ex-girlfriend to hit me with her car. But that night, I would gain a new notch from my metaphorical belt of mistakes and hard-won lessons. You see, the place that Oscar took us had no name. There was no sign. There was no indication at all that this place was anything more than a squat, one-story building composed of naked cinder blocks far off the main strip. There was a Shell gas station that existed in its own island of electric light a few blocks down and directly across from our destination. There was an Outback Steakhouse that had long been shuttered. The parking lot was a smattering of working man's vehicles. Trucks, dirty sedans, and the occasional Harley-Davidsons all awaited the return of their owners in various states of inebriation. We're going to get fucking stabbed, Tommy. I hope you know that. The words fell out of my mouth before I could stop them. Fuck, this is some sketchy shit, John agreed with my sentiment at least. Oh, you boys will be fine. This is a good place. They're cheap. Tell them Oscar said you should get the dirty double, and you remember me when you need another ride. Oscar punctuated his advice with another fit of bitter laughter. Tommy, who never saw the harm or bad side in anything or anyone, quickly shelled out money for the cab ride and generously tipped Oscar for his troubles. John and I were too busy eyeballing the muscle-bound behemoth by the door to pay much attention to exactly how much Tommy did tip. But, knowing him as I do, it's safe to say Oscar was well compensated for delivering us to what may have well been our demise. That behemoth by the door watched us with the deceptively lethal disinterest of an alligator. Bastard had to have been closing in on 6'8", and he was seemingly born without a neck. Just muscles on which his head sat. The poor bastard would have went mad if he'd had an itch between his shoulder blades, as there was no conceivable way he could have reached them. This man was not a bouncer. He was a goddamn frost giant that had been raised in South Carolina by mistake. We approached as a group, hoping that in our unity he would not mistake us for food and eat us. $10 a head, cover charge, Behemoth growled and took a single step to the side. Behind him, there was a sign made of regular old poster board that had been written upon in black marker. The sign stated in no uncertain terms the rules of this seemingly unnamed establishment. No gang colors, no biker cuts, no weapons, no politics. Charming. And by charming, I mean mildly terrifying. We paid, got inside, and found a table near the rear of the room. The club was smoky and dim, but it was filled to the brim with strippers. As to the quality of the strippers, I cannot say. How does one rank or rate such a thing? It was a club made of cinder block and shame, and it didn't even have a sign. I had a feeling this whole place might not have been rock bottom. I had a feeling that while this place might not have been the rock bottom, it was close enough that you could peer over the edge here and see the bones of those who had tumbled over, waiting for you at the end of the fall. We'd been here less than 10 minutes when the first fight broke out a few tables over. Two burly men going at it like wild buffaloes in rut, bashing into each other and knocking over both chairs and strippers alike. The bouncers swarmed them, of course, including Behemoth. And as they were dragging out the riffraff, I couldn't help but notice one of the combatants had left not one, but several unopened beers on their table. Tommy and I drifted in that direction and liberated these abandoned beverages from their forlorn and lost state. I'd like to tell you we behaved like gentlemen, that we were utterly and completely immune to the charms of the strippers, and that the whole thing was more of a social experiment than the actions of degenerates. I'd like to tell you that, but it would be a lie. We were in our early 20s, and surrounded now by beautiful naked women, and we just kept pouring booze into the fire. At some point, the pilfered beer ceased being enough, and Tommy began to order shots of tequila at the urgings of a stripper named Candy, with an I, not a Y, y'all, who had joined us at our table. The night began to get blurry and quick. The memories of these moments, deprived of sleep and hammering down high-test booze, can only be recalled in broken fragments. The mind might pull itself back together come morning's light. Sobriety might knock the cobwebs out of your brain. But in the end, the recollections are like shards of ice floating in dark water, disjointed and broken to a degree that the full scope can never again be seen. I read that and I have flashbacks to a picnic table and having my legs swept out from under me by a Marine Corps hand-to-hand instructor. I understand. I have flashes, though. Tommy losing himself in the thrill of the game and shelling out wad after wad of cash for everything from drinks to dances and even the occasional tip. Back home, he was always cautious about how he showed his money because there was always the chance that on his deliveries he'd get robbed. But here he was seemingly free to cut loose. Can't say I can complain. Some of those dances he paid for were on my behalf. John was the one who worked up the courage to ask about the Dirty Double, which turned out to be the strip club equivalent of a twofer coupon. This immediately became the only sort of private dance John would pay for, and as the night wore on, he spent increasingly little time at the table getting sloshed with Tommy and myself. He'd reappear from time to time, sweaty and wide-eyed, gobbling down whatever drinks were at the table, before once more vanishing off to track down another two dancers. I have no memory at all of leaving. I only remember, in the vaguest of ways, standing out front of this horrid block building and waiting on Oscar to come get us as I swayed back and forth on my feet. We were too far away from the ocean to hear the waves anymore, but when the wind blew, you could smell the salt on the air. Even here in the dirt and the grime, the sea persisted. By the time Oscar showed up, we were all in such poor condition we could not reliably recall the name of the hotel in which we were staying. I do remember returning to the room, though, and finding Tarantino still awake and watching television. For a moment, I probably just stared at him like a caveman who had recently suffered a traumatically powerful blow to the head. You guys have fun? He asked with a sort of cheer that is anathema when you're pissed drunk and recovering from the frustrations of a strip club. I slurred and collapsed onto the bed. He'd have to wait until morning if he wanted a translation. Holy shit. How long is this one? Hold on. Jesus Christ. Almost as long. Okay. Shit. I wanted to read more. I'm not going to lie. I wanted to actually do more. I don't know if I can do more in a half an hour. That took the better part of an hour. Holy crap. Shit. Let me see here. I'm curious about something. Alright, good. You can keep recording just that window. In fact, move you over here. There we go. Coyote, you online, homie? You are. I wonder. Does he have any snippets of stuff posted recently? Let me see here. Oh, wait. Okay, hold on. Wait. Oh, sweet. Hey, he's on a podcast. I'm going to put a link to that in this too. I'm going to have a link to that in the description. So, that's cool. Oh, it's on Nightmare Press's site. Nice. Okay, cool. But wait, where is it here? Let me see. Come on, where is it? I know, I'm like, this is just like dying off here. But there was a phrasing. Was it here? No. There was a phrasing he had. Oh! Number 300 in contemporary fantasy. Huzzah! All right, let me see. Come on, where was it? Okay, a bunch of Nick Cave memes. Nick Cave is a vampire, for the record. He's been pointing this out. He's been a firm believer of that one. There was a phrasing he used the other day that I really want. I was like, no, I want to use this. Also, wait, what the crap? I missed that. Holy crap, dude. It was your birthday the other day. I completely missed that. Happy birthday. I'm going to probably tell you off to the side too, but Jesus. In the comments, give Coyote a happy birthday and buy his book. It's better than a cake. Buy his book because you want to buy it, but also buy it because, you know. Let's see. Damn it. Where is it? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, here we go. All right. Oh, Jesus, this was a week ago. No wonder it was so long. I have lost track of time. All right. So, in light of the fact that was way longer than I thought it was going to be, so I am not going to try chewing out another one. This is one of the rare ones for the dispatches. I guess there will be another dispatches I get to do. Huzzah. At least one more. Depends on how many more he winds up cranking out. Keep doing content, especially if you guys enjoy these. But there was a post he made the other day that is well worth commenting on. Now, for legal reasons, I want to be abundantly clear. For purely legal reasons, this is not an official statement by any stretch. This was purely satirical and any of that. And I will pull this down if in any way it is any kind of a negative import in his direction. This is not something officially endorsed by Coyote or his publisher in the slightest. Not at all. Equally so, I am not endorsed in any official capacity by Coyote or his publisher. I am just some idiot who enjoys reading his stuff. A lot. That said, I'm not being paid by them. I have no official affiliation with them. That is abundantly to be clear. Look, I'm not saying American Mystic should replace anyone's purchases of a certain glasses-wearing, scar-having wizard whose entire story looks suspiciously similar to one written by Neil Gaiman 8 years earlier this holiday season. I would never do that. However, Jimmy does stay in school at least once, wears glasses, and goes on a wild adventure to save all of magic. And last I checked, I'm not a complete and total bag of rabid, transphobic ferrets. Are we allowed to suggest JK isn't actually a bag of transphobic ferrets masquerading as a human being as part of marketing? No? Ah, shit. Well, the odds are, statistically speaking, higher that she's a bag of transphobic ferrets than, still too close. Okay, fine. You should buy American Mystic, The Life, Death, and Rebirth of Jimmy Wonderful. No transphobic ferret bag people were involved in the creation of this tale of magic. 100% transphobic ferret bag people free. And it just occurred to me, Coyote, see if your publisher can get like some illustrations. Get some stickers. Side marketing. Some kind of like gonzo journalism stuff. But it's Jimmy. No transphobic ferret certified. I don't know, something. I'm stumbling. Alright. Anyway. Oh, Jesus, what are we at? Yeah, it's 1:15. This is not one of the longer ones, but it's within the range that I want to go for him. So, just one dispatch this time. Surf, Sand, and Coyotes, The Adventures of an Appalachian Degenerate, Part 1. We'll get Part 2 next time. Actually, no. Part 2 is going to wait a minute, because, seriously, I want to do some of the reading for American Mystic. I am so freaking jazzed for that. But we will get back to more of the dispatches. It also gives me some more time to figure out what the hell I'm going to do when I'm not reading the dispatches, because I'm still sorting that one out. I think I had an idea or two. And I probably am able to carry myself at least through the turn of the year. But after that, I got nothing. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed yourselves. If you did, please, got to do the standard YouTube script bit. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Also, as a heads up, there may come a point where the subscription may not matter as much. There's some loose talks about possibly consolidating this over onto what is currently the Xenogeus channel, where I do a lot of not tabletop. We do a lot of game streaming, but that channel is for youtube.com/@Xenogeus7295. I'll put a link in the description as well for that. We're probably going to rebrand that channel. We're still talking it over. But I may wind up moving I may move this on over there. Not the ones that I've currently got done, because, they're already here, but move future ones over there. We'll see. I'll figure out a transitional phase for any of that. But still, for the time being, like and subscribe over here. Give a like and subscribe over on Xenogeus too, and catch us on Fridays when we're just being idiots playing video games. Go buy a copy of American Mystic. Let's see. Buy a copy of American Mystic. like and subscribe to this, or like on this video, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to Genogius. Buy a second copy of American Mystic because fuck it, it's awesome. And I think that's it. You guys take care. Bye.